Mia felt the weight of Edward's stare burning into her back as she crossed the main dining room of Bella Vita, a tray balanced perfectly in her hands. The low light from the crystal chandeliers cast shadows that seemed to dance across the impeccable tables, but she was no longer charmed by the restaurant's superficial sophistication. She had learned over the last 2 years working at this fine dining establishment that the shinier the surface, the more rot was usually hiding underneath. She placed the plates in front of the couple at table 7, with a professional smile she had perfected. Over the months, the man wearing a discreet but clearly expensive suit thanked her with a nod. The woman didn't even look at Mia, too busy admiring her own perfectly manicured nails. It was always like this. To most of Bella Vita's clientele, servers were invisible pieces of the decor, as necessary as the silverware but just as disposable. Mia returned to the kitchen, and the contrast hit her as it always did. The dining room exuded European elegance, with its Belgian linen tablecloths and fresh floral arrangements changed daily. The kitchen, however, was a poorly lit battlefield where the smell of burnt grease fought with the artificial scent of cheap cleaning products. Chef Rick, a talented man who had long ago given up fighting the system, barked orders at the staff while Edward circled like a hungry shark, scrutinizing every move. The manager was in his early 40s, with slicked back hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. Mia watched him approach Carla, one of the younger line cooks, and whisper something that made the girl turn pale and lower her head. It wasn't hard to guess the content of the conversation. Edward had only one language, that of fear and veiled threats. It was Julia, her best friend at the restaurant, who had first told her about Bella Vita's unwritten rule. They were having coffee at a nearby diner during their break between the lunch and dinner shifts, when her more experienced colleague had looked around to make sure no one was listening. "You learn fast here, Mia. Don't question, don't complain, and never tell the truth if it hurts the bottom line. Edward answers directly to the owners, and all that matters are the numbers at the end of the month." Mia had thought Julia was exaggerating, until she witnessed the first time a customer complained about a dish that was obviously reheated, and Edward simply deducted the full cost of the meal from the server's paycheck. Until she saw the kitchen get orders to reuse sauces that had clearly gone sour. Until she heard the manager instructing the staff to push the most expensive dishes, even knowing the quality was compromised. Her phone buzzed in her uniform pocket. It was a text from her mom, Connie, asking if she could send the rent money by Friday. Mia felt the familiar tightness in her chest. Her mom lived out in Queens, in a simple house she struggled to keep ever since Mia's father had left them 5 years ago. Mia's salary at Bella Vita, even with tips, barely covered her own expenses and the monthly help she sent her mother. She typed a quick reply, promising she would, put her phone away and took a deep breath. She couldn't lose this job. It didn't matter how small Edward made her feel, or how many times she had to swallow her own dignity. Connie depended on her. "Get back on the floor, Mia. Table 12 needs attention." Edward's voice cut through her thoughts like a blade. She obeyed, straightening her apron as she walked. Table 12 was occupied by a man dining alone, something unusual at Bella Vita, where most customers were elegant couples or loud business groups. He was sitting discreetly in a corner, browsing the menu with genuine interest. He was about 50, with well-cut graying hair and the air of someone more used to observing than being observed. "Good evening. Welcome to Bella Vita. May I suggest anything from the menu?" The man looked up and Mia noticed his eyes were a light, intelligent brown. He smiled in a way that seemed sincere, so different from the manufactured smiles she saw daily. "Good evening. I'm torn between the mushroom risotto and the filet mignon with the Madeira wine sauce. What do you recommend?" Mia hesitated for a fraction of a second. The risotto was fresh and well prepared. The filet, she knew, was being served with a sauce Rick had made 3 days ago, which Edward had ordered them to reuse to avoid a loss. The manager's voice echoed in her mind, reminding her of the sales target for premium dishes that night. "The filet mignon is one of our signature dishes, sir, very popular with our regulars." She said the words Edward expected to hear, but they left a bitter taste in her mouth. The man nodded and closed the menu. "Then I'll have the filet, and a glass of the Malbec from the wine list." Mia wrote down the order and returned to the kitchen, where Edward was already waiting with his arms crossed and that predatory smile. "Great job pushing the filet. Keep it up, and you might even get a bonus this month." The bonus was another one of his tricks. He always promised it, rarely delivered, and when he did, it was such a ridiculous amount it hardly compensated for the humiliation of having to beg for it. But Mia just nodded and passed the order to the kitchen. Rick, seeing the ticket, exchanged a look with her. The chef knew exactly which sauce would be used. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but Edward was already there, standing right beside them. "Any problem, Rick?" "None, boss." The chef looked down and started preparing the dish. Mia left the kitchen feeling dirty. She had just sold a product she knew was compromised to a customer who had trusted her recommendation. The rationalization came quickly, as it always did. She needed the job. Her mum needed her. Just one more dish, just one more night, just one more month. The shift continued at its frantic pace. The dining room was packed, as it always was on Fridays. Mia served table after table, smiling mechanically, taking orders, balancing plates. In the back of her mind, however, there was a growing unease. She watched as the dish for the man at table 12 was plated. She watched Rick hesitate before adding the sauce. She watched Edward personally supervise, ensuring everything went according to his instructions. When she brought the filet to table 12, the man thanked her with the same politeness as before. Mia placed the plate in front of him and for a moment wanted to warn him, to say that maybe he'd prefer to order something else, but the words died in her throat when she saw Edward watching from across the room. "Enjoy your meal, sir." She walked away and continued her work, but her eyes kept returning to table 12. The man ate slowly, savoring each bite, taking measured sips of his wine. Everything seemed normal until he frowned slightly and put his fork back on the plate. Mia felt her stomach clench. She knew that expression. She'd seen it before. It was the look of someone who realized something was wrong with their food. The man looked around discreetly, as if searching for someone. His eyes met Mia's. He raised his hand in a polite gesture, summoning her. With heavy legs, Mia crossed the dining room. Edward had already noticed and was heading in her direction too, that mask of plastic professionalism plastered on his face. "Yes, sir? Can I help you with something?" Mia's voice came out more tense than she intended. "Look, I don't want to make a scene, but the sauce on this dish has a strange taste. A bit acidic, like it's not fresh." There was a tense silence. Mia could feel Edward coming up behind her, like an approaching storm. The manager stepped forward with that oily smile. "Sir, I can assure you that all our ingredients are of the highest quality and prepared fresh daily. The Madeira sauce has red wine in its recipe, which can create that perception of acidity for palates less accustomed to fine dining." Mia saw the man's jaw tighten slightly. The insinuation that his palate wasn't refined enough was clear, but the customer maintained his composure. "I understand. But I know Madeira sauce, and this is definitely not right. It tastes reheated." Edward laughed, a forced, condescending sound. "I'll have to respectfully disagree, sir. But if the dish isn't to your liking, I can arrange for another option." "It's not a matter of my liking, it's a matter of quality," the man said calmly, but there was steel in his voice. "Sir, I can assure you—" "Edward, I need to talk to you, in the kitchen, now." Mia heard her own words come out before she could think. All eyes turned to her. The manager stared at her with barely contained fury. "Mia, get back to your station. I'll handle this." But she had already crossed an invisible line. "I know about the sauce, Edward, he's right." The silence that followed was absolute. Edward grabbed her arm forcefully, smiling falsely at the customer. "Excuse us for a moment, sir." He practically dragged her to the back, away from prying eyes. When they reached the hallway leading to the kitchen, he let her go with a shove and turned on her, his face red with suppressed rage. "Are you crazy? You just undermined my authority in front of a customer." "He's right, Edward. That sauce is 3 days old. Rick told me. You ordered them to reuse it. So what? Nobody notices. Nobody ever notices. But now, because of you, I have a customer complaining and making a scene. Mia took a deep breath, feeling something shift inside her. He noticed because it's spoiled, and I'm not going to lie to cover for it. Edward took a step forward, invading her personal space. His eyes were two embers of hatred. You're going to go back out there, apologize to the customer, and assure him the sauce is perfect, that it was a misunderstanding, that he ate it wrong or had too much to drink. Make something up. If you don't do this right now, you're fired on the spot. Mia's heart was beating so hard she could hear it in her ears. She thought of her mum. She thought of the rent. She thought of all the times she had swallowed her dignity out of necessity. But she also thought about how many more times she would have to do this, how many more lies she would have to tell, how many more people would be deceived. No. The word came out quiet, but firm. Edward blinked, as if unsure he'd heard correctly. What did you say? I said no, I'm not going to lie. The manager's expression twisted into something terrible. Fine. Then you'll accompany me back to the dining room. You're about to learn what happens to people who defy me. He grabbed her arm again and led her back to the dining room where the man at table 12 was still waiting, watching everything with silent attention. Other customers were starting to notice something was wrong. Edward stopped beside the table, holding Mia's arm as if she were a disobedient child. Sir, my apologies for the confusion. My employee here is going to clear up the misunderstanding about our sauce. Aren't you, Mia? Every eye in the restaurant was on her now. The silence was as heavy as lead. Mia looked at the man at table 12, saw the attentive expression on his face, saw that he knew exactly what was happening. She looked at Edward, saw the threat in his eyes, felt the pressure of his fingers on her arm, and then something inside her simply broke. You're absolutely right, sir. The sauce is spoiled. Mia's words echoed through the dining room like a thunderclap. There was a frozen moment in time where no one seemed to breathe, then everything happened very quickly. Edward dropped her arm as if she were on fire. His face went through several shades of red before he exploded. Are you insane? You're completely insane! Mia felt her legs tremble, but she stood her ground. I'm not insane, I'm telling the truth. That sauce is 3 days old and was reused on your orders. It happens here all the time. The murmur that swept through the restaurant was like a wave. Customers at nearby tables dropped their silverware. Someone pulled out a cell phone. Mia saw out of the corner of her eye Julia standing at the kitchen door, hand over her mouth, eyes wide with horror. Edward took a step forward, his finger pointed at her face. You have no idea what you've just done. You have no clue. You're fired. Do you hear me? Fired. Get your things and get out of here now. The word fired hit Mia like a punch. The reality of what she had done crashed down on her with its full weight. Her mother's rent, her own bills, the resume that would take months to land another job. What had she done? But then she looked around. She saw the expressions of disgust on the customers' faces. She saw a couple getting up and asking for the check. She saw a woman pushing her plate away with a grimace. She saw, in the eyes of the staff, watching from the kitchen, something she hadn't seen in a long time. Respect. You can fire me, Edward, but I won't be silent. Mia heard her own voice, stronger now. You all deserve to know. She turned to the customers. This restaurant serves reheated, expired food and charges premium prices for it. The employees are threatened. Their pay is docked for mistakes they didn't make, all to inflate the numbers at the end of the month. That's slander. That's defamation. Edward was out of control now, gesturing wildly. I'm going to sue you. I'll destroy you. When I'm done, you won't get a job washing dishes. The man at table 12 finally stood up. He wasn't tall, but there was a natural authority in his movements that made Edward stop yelling. The customer calmly took out his wallet, left a few bills on the table, including a substantial tip that was clearly for Mia. Thank you for your honesty, miss, he said, his voice low but clear enough to be heard. It's rare these days to find someone willing to do the right thing, even when it's costly. He gave a slight nod and walked toward the exit. Half the restaurant followed. Him. Couples stood up, leaving half-eaten meals and cash on their tables. An elderly woman stopped beside Mia and squeezed her hand quickly before leaving. In less than 5 minutes, Bella Vita was nearly empty. Edward looked around, his face now pale, realizing the magnitude of the disaster. When he turned back to Mia, the rage had given way to something worse, a cold, calculated hatred. "You just signed your professional death warrant," he said quietly, just for her to hear. "I know people at every restaurant in this city. When I'm done spreading the word about who you are, no one will hire you, not even to serve coffee. Get out of here now before I call security." Mia grabbed her purse from the employee locker, her hands shaking so badly she could barely open the lock. Julia appeared beside her, her eyes full of tears. "Mia, my God, what did you do?" "What I should have done a long time ago." Mia tried to smile, but she felt her own tears start to fall. "Take care of yourself, Julia. Don't let him do to you what he did to me." Julia gave her a quick hug before rushing back to the dining room, fearing her own termination for fraternizing with the traitor. Mia walked out the back door of Bella Vita, and the cold New York night air hit her like a slap. She walked to the nearest bus stop, and only when she was sitting on the cold plastic bench did she allow the tears to truly fall. What had she done? How was she going to explain to her mum that she was unemployed? How was she going to pay the rent, the utilities, the minimum on her already maxed-out credit card? Her phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Mia opened it, her heart pounding. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life. I'm going to personally make sure you never work anywhere again. Get ready to see what happens to people who betray me." It was from Edward. He must have gotten her number from the restaurant's records. A chill ran down Mia's spine. It wasn't just an empty threat. Edward knew people. He had connections. He could actually destroy her reputation. Another text came through, then another, and another, all variations of the same threat. Mia blocked the number, but she knew that wouldn't solve anything. The bus took 40 minutes to arrive. Mia got on and sat in the back, huddled against the window. Her apartment was in a modest neighborhood in Queens, a studio she shared with B, a nursing student who worked night shifts and was rarely home at the same time. When she finally arrived and opened the door, she found the apartment empty and dark. Mia dropped her purse on the floor and went straight to the bathroom. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back, and the red, swollen eyes, the pale face, the Bella Vita uniform she still wore like evidence of her own ruin. She took a long shower, letting the hot water wash away the tears and the smell of grease and disinfectant that always clung to her clothes. When she got out, she put on old pajamas and sat on her bed with her phone in her hands. She needed to call her mom. She needed to tell her. But how could she explain that she had thrown away their stability because of pride, because of principles that didn't pay the bills? The phone rang before she could decide. It was Connie. "Hey, Mom." "Mia, honey. So good to hear you. How was work today?" Mia closed her eyes, feeling the tears well up again. It was different." "Different how?" "Mom, I lost my job." There was a silence on the other end of the line. Then Connie's voice, softer. "What happened?" Mia told her everything. The words tumbled out, mixed with sobs. The spoiled sauce, Edward's threats, the choice she made, the public humiliation, the threatening texts. When she finished, she expected censure, despair, maybe even anger. Instead, she heard her mother's firm voice. "You did the right thing, Mia." "Mom, No, listen to your mother. You did the right thing. I didn't raise you to bow your head and accept injustice. I didn't raise you to lie and deceive people for money. If I had to choose between having the rent paid or having a daughter with dignity, I choose dignity every time." "But what now? How are we going to—" "We'll manage. We always have, haven't we? When your father left, we managed. When I got sick, we managed, and we'll manage again." Connie paused. "You'll find another job, a place that truly values you. And until then, I'll pick up some extra work. Mrs. Lewis offered me some sewing jobs." "Mom, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. Because I'm your mother, and that's what mothers do. We protect our daughters. even when they're grown up and stubborn. There was a smile in her voice. Now you get some rest. Tomorrow is a new day. When they hung up, Mia felt a little lighter. She was still scared, still worried, but something about her mother's unwavering certainty comforted her. She grabbed her old laptop and started updating her resume. She worked on it late into the night, applying for jobs at restaurants, cafes, hotels, anything. With every application she sent, a small spark of hope ignited. She was almost asleep when her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Mia almost didn't answer, fearing more threats from Edward, but something made her swipe her finger and accept the call. Hello? Mia! The voice on the other end was male, polite, unfamiliar. Yes, who's this? My name is Paul Harrison. I'm a labor and employment attorney. I was having dinner at Bella Vita tonight and witnessed everything. That happened. Mia sat up in bed, wide awake now. Sir? I recorded the audio of the entire scene, the wrongful termination, the manager's accusations, everything, and I have a proposal for you. If you're willing, I'd like to represent you pro bono in a lawsuit against the restaurant. Mia was silent, trying to process. Why? Why would you do that? Paul Harrison sighed. Because I've been practicing employment law for 20 years, and I'm tired of seeing people exploited and humiliated. What you did tonight was brave, and bravery should be rewarded, not punished. But I don't have any money to pay a lawyer. I know, that's why I'm offering my services pro bono. But you need to understand something. If we take this case, it's going to be a battle. The restaurant will try to destroy you. It will be difficult and could take months. Mia thought of Edward's texts, the threats, the fear she had felt. She thought of all the times she had stayed silent, all the injustices she had swallowed. I'll do it. Excellent. Then here's what we'll do. Tomorrow morning you'll come to my office. It's on Park Avenue. We'll document everything, the threats, the illegal practices, all of it. And we're also going to file an anonymous complaint with the Department of Health. The Health Department? If they're serving expired food, that's a major health code violation. It could get the place shut down. When Mia hung up, for the first time since she'd walked out of Bella Vita, she smiled. It wasn't a big smile or a confident one, but it was real. Maybe, just maybe, doing the right thing wasn't synonymous with losing. She finally fell asleep, exhausted, but with a strange feeling in her chest that took a few minutes to identify. It was hope. The next day, Mia woke up to the sun streaming through her bedroom window. For a few blessed seconds, she forgot everything that had happened. Then the memory came rushing back, and she groaned, pulling the pillow over her head. Her phone showed it was 8 a.m. She had a text from Paul Harrison with the office address, asking her to be there at 10. She also had 4 missed calls from unknown numbers and 3 voicemails. With a knot in her stomach, Mia listened to the messages. They were all from Edward, using different numbers. The threats had escalated. Now he wasn't just promising to destroy her career, but also saying he would spread lies about her, that he had fake proof of theft, that he would tell everyone she was mentally unstable. Mia saved all the messages, taking screenshots as Paul Harrison had instructed. Every one of Edward's venomous words would be used against him. Paul Harrison's office was on the 12th floor of a commercial building on Park Avenue. Mia rode the elevator up, watching her reflection in the mirrored doors. She had worn her only semi-formal outfit, black slacks and a white blouse she used for job interviews. She felt out of place there, surrounded by executives in suits and women in high heels carrying leather briefcases. The receptionist, a friendly young woman with glasses, directed her to a conference room where Paul Harrison was already waiting. He was younger than Mia had imagined from his voice on the phone, maybe around 40, with brown hair slightly graying at the temples and a welcoming smile. Mia, thank you for coming. Please, have a seat. She sat in the upholstered chair, feeling small in that room with a view of the bustling avenue. Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Harrison. I still can't believe you're doing this. Paul opened a folder on the table. Let me explain how this will work. First, we'll document everything that happened. Then, we'll file a formal complaint with the Department of Health based on the practices you witnessed. In parallel, We'll file a lawsuit against Bella Vita for wrongful termination, emotional distress, and workplace harassment. And how much will all this cost? For you? Nothing. I take on a certain number of pro bono cases each year. When I saw what happened last night, I decided, yours would be one of them. He paused. But I need you to understand this is going to get ugly before it gets better. The restaurant will hire expensive lawyers. They'll try to paint you as a problem employee. They'll try to discredit your word. Mia thought of Edward's messages. They've already started. She showed her phone to Paul, who scrolled through the texts with an increasingly serious expression. When he finished, he let out a low whistle. This is gold, Mia. Threats, coercion, harassment. He just handed us half our case on a silver platter. We'll file a criminal complaint as well. They spent the next 2 hours documenting everything. Mia told him about the illegal wage deductions, the practice of reusing food, the pressure to push expensive dishes despite knowing the quality was compromised. Paul took meticulous notes, asking specific questions, requesting details, dates, names. Do you know any other employees who would be willing to testify? Mia thought of Julia, of Rick, of Carla. They were scared, justifiably so. They need their jobs, Mr. Harrison. They can't risk it. I understand, so we'll work with what we have. And hey, about the health department. Do you think you could draw a map of the kitchen? Point out where the freezers are, where they keep the sauces, things like that. Mia nodded. I can do that. When she left the office 3 hours later, Mia was exhausted but determined. Paul had been clear. The lawsuit would be long and difficult, but they had a strong case. Very strong. She was riding the elevator down when her phone rang. Unknown number again. This time she answered on speakerphone, activating the recorder as Paul had taught her. Hello? Mia. Edward's voice was different, controlled, almost friendly. Look, I think we both got a little carried away yesterday. You were stressed, I was under pressure. How about we talk like adults? Mia felt a shiver. This was a trap. We have nothing to talk about, Edward. Of course we do. Look, I can give you your job back, with a raise even, and we can just forget this whole thing. His tone was syrupy, fake. Nobody needs to know anything. It's too late for that. There was a silence. When Edward spoke again, the mask had fallen. You think you can hurt me and walk away unscathed? You think I don't have resources? I will end you, Mia. I'll spread rumors that you stole from the register, that you harassed customers, that you were unstable. When I'm done, you won't get a job as a janitor. Mia hung up and immediately saved the recording, sending it to Paul. The lawyer's response came in seconds. Perfect. Add it to the pile. But despite the bravado, Mia was scared. Edward had connections, money, power. And her? She just had the truth and the help of a lawyer she barely knew. The following days were a blur of anxiety and uncertainty. Mia spent her mornings sending out resumes and her afternoons helping Paul build the case. The complaint to the health department was filed anonymously, but with enough detailed information to guarantee a full inspection. Bay, her roommate, was an unexpected source of support. The nursing student started bringing home extra food from the hospital, making sure Mia didn't go hungry while she job hunted. You're going to get through this, Mia, B said one night, as they shared a container of chicken and rice. What you did was incredible. Everyone should have that kind of courage. Mia didn't feel courageous. She felt terrified and broke, but she was grateful for the support nonetheless. It was the following Friday that things really started to move. Mia was on her way back from another frustrating interview, this one at a cafe offering minimum wage and abusive hours, when she saw the notifications on her phone. She had 3 missed calls from Julia. When she called back, her friend answered in a whisper, clearly hiding somewhere. Mia, you're not going to believe this. The health department showed up an hour ago. A surprise inspection with a warrant and everything. They're tearing the kitchen apart. Mia's heart raced. And what did they find? Everything, Mia. Expired food, dirty freezers, improper temperature controls. Edward is freaking out. He knows you're the one who reported it. He's saying he's going to sue you for defamation. Let him try, Mia surprised herself with the firmness in her voice. Julia, when they leave, write down everything you can. The inspectors' names, what they took, what they said. It could be important. Mia, I'm scared. I know, but this will be over soon, and when it is, you'll all be free of him. When she hung up, Mia immediately called Paul, who celebrated. The news as if it were a personal victory. Excellent. With a citation from the health department, our case gets even stronger. They'll have to close temporarily to fix the violations, and that will put pressure on the restaurant's owners. The owners. Mia had never seen the real owners of Bella Vita. Edward always reported to someone, but that someone was a mysterious, ever-absent figure. Who are the owners, Mr. Harrison? An investment holding company, several partners, but there's one majority shareholder who calls the shots. A big name in the restaurant industry, very rich, very powerful. Paul paused. Mia, you need to prepare yourself. When this lawsuit reaches them, things are going to escalate. What do you mean? They're going to try to buy you off. They'll offer you money to drop the suit, sign a non-disclosure agreement. It could be a tempting amount. And if I take it, then Edward walks free to do the same thing to other employees. The toxic culture continues, and you live the rest of your life knowing you were silenced. Paul softened his tone. But it's your choice, Mia. It's always your choice. Mia thought about it for days. She thought about the overdue rent, the mounting bills, the increasingly empty refrigerator. A part of her, the practical, tired part, just wanted to take the money and move on. But the other part, the part that had looked that customer in the eye and told the truth, knew she couldn't live with bought silence. The citation of Bella Vita made the local news. Luxury restaurant fined for health code violations. Mia read the article on her phone, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. How many contaminated meals had been served before she had the courage to speak up? It was Julia who called with the next bombshell. Mia, the restaurant closed. Temporarily, they say, but it's closed. They sent everyone home with no date to return. Edward has disappeared. Rumor is he was summoned to a meeting with the investors. How's the staff? Scared. They don't know if they'll have jobs when it reopens. Some are already looking for other work. Julia paused. Mia, some people here are mad at you. They're saying you screwed everyone over. Julia's curse word, so rare from her, showed the tension of the situation. Mia felt guilt tighten in her chest. I know, but Julia, it couldn't go on like that. Someone had to say something. I know, and deep down everyone else knows it too. But it's hard when you're out of a paycheck with bills to pay. That night, Mia had a strange dream. She was back at Bella Vita, but the restaurant was empty and decaying. The tables were covered in dust, the chandeliers dark. Edward was there, sitting alone at a table, aged and defeated. He looked at her with hatred, but also with something that resembled fear. She woke up with her heart pounding, the dream still vivid in her mind. It was the following Monday, exactly 2 weeks after she was fired, that Paul called with an urgency in his voice. Mia, you need to come to the office now. Something unexpected has happened. What is it? I'd rather tell you in person, but it's about Edward and about the restaurant's owners. Mia took the subway to Park Avenue with her heart in her throat. What new twist was this? Had Edward fled the country? Had the owners decided to countersue her? When she arrived at the office, Paul wasn't alone. There was another man in the room, in an impeccable suit, with well-cut graying hair. It took Mia a few seconds to recognize him. It was the customer from table 12, the man who had complained about the sauce. Mia froze in the doorway of the conference room. The man from table 12 smiled gently and stood up, extending his hand. A pleasure to meet you officially, Mia. My name is Robert Miller. I'm the majority partner and founder of the Bella Vita restaurant group. Mia felt her legs go weak. Paul quickly pulled a chair out for her. Please sit down, the lawyer said, giving her a reassuring look. Mr. Miller, Mia tried to process. You're the owner? Yes, I founded the group 15 years ago. Today we have 5 locations across New York City, or at least we had a solid reputation. Robert sat down again, his eyes serious, but not hostile. I was there that night doing a surprise audit. I do it periodically without notifying managers or staff. It's the only way to see how things really work. Mia's mouth went dry. And you saw? I saw everything. The coercion, the attempt to force you to lie, the wrongful termination. And I heard your accusations about the restaurant's practices. Robert opened a thick folder on the table. For the past 2 weeks, my internal auditors have gone through every corner of that location. They've spoken to suppliers, checked financial records, interviewed employees under the guarantee of anonymity. He pushed the folder toward Mia. And they confirmed every single word you said. Mia stared at the folder, unsure what to do. Paul leaned in. Mr. Miller sought out my office because he learned I was representing you. He has a proposal. Robert folded his hands on the table. Mia, let me tell you a story. When I opened my first restaurant, I was like you, an employee trying to do the right thing in a system that rewards shortcuts. I worked for years as a server, as a line cook, in places that treated me as disposable. When I finally managed to open Bella Vita, I swore it would be different, that my employees would be respected, that quality would be non-negotiable. He paused, the weight of his disappointment visible on his face. But as the company grew, I became more distant from the day-to-day operations. I hired managers, gave them autonomy, trusted them. And that was my mistake. Edward Martin isn't an exception, Mia. Over the last 5 years, the culture I built has been eroded by people like him. People who see employees as numbers and customers as targets. And I didn't notice, or didn't want to notice. Mia finally found her voice. Why are you telling me this? Because you did what I should have done years ago. You refused to be complicit, and you paid a high price for it. Robert leaned forward. Edward was fired for cause this morning. He's facing criminal and civil charges. He'll never work in the restaurant industry again as long as I have any influence. But firing him doesn't solve the bigger problem, which is rebuilding the culture, ensuring that what happened to you never happens to anyone else. And for that, I need people who have the courage to speak the truth, who put integrity above fear. Mia looked at Paul, who nodded encouragingly. She turned her eyes back to Robert. What exactly are you proposing? First, a fair settlement for everything you've been through. Emotional distress, lost wages, all documented and approved by Mr. Harrison. Second, if you're willing, I want to offer you a position in the company, not as a server, as a supervisor of service and compliance. Your job would be to ensure that all our locations operate with the ethical standards they should have always had. Mia blinked, unable to believe what she was hearing. You want to hire me, after I publicly exposed your restaurant? Precisely because of that. Robert smiled for the first time, a genuine smile. Management techniques I can teach, training, processes, all of that is learnable. But character, courage, you can't teach that, Mia. You either have it or you don't. And you've proven you have it. But I don't have any experience in supervision. I don't have a degree in... You have 2 years of experience in the trenches. You know how things really work or don't work. Not on paper, but in practice. Robert gestured. I can hire expensive consultants to tell me what's wrong, but they'll never understand it like someone who lived it, who suffered through it. Mia felt tears burn her eyes. This is... I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it, Paul intervened gently. It's a big decision. You don't have to. Answer now. How much time do I have? As much time as you need, Robert stood up. But while you think, I want you to know one thing. Regardless of your decision about the job, the settlement is yours. You've earned it. And more importantly, you saved my company from continuing to operate in a criminal manner. I owe you my gratitude, not favors. When Mia left the office an hour later, her head spinning, she had a check in her hand that would cover 6 months of her mother's rent and all her own overdue bills. She also had a preliminary employment contract that Paul advised her to read carefully before signing. She walked down Park Avenue in a state of shock. 2 weeks ago, she was unemployed and threatened. Now she had a job offer better than anything she could have dreamed of. Her phone rang. It was Connie. Mia, I was so worried. How are you? Mom, Mia stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, letting people stream past her. "Mom, you're not going to believe this." She told her everything. Her mother listened in silence, only letting out occasional exclamations. When Mia finished, Connie was crying. "Honey, I always knew that doing the right thing would pay off in the end." Mia smiled through her own tears. "I learned from the best." "And are you going to take the job?" "I don't know, Mom. It's so much responsibility. What if I'm not good enough?" "Mia Connie Miller." Her mother's voice became firm, using her full name as she always did when she wanted total attention. "You spent the last few years serving people who treated you like you were invisible. You put up with humiliation, abuse, injustice, and when it came time to choose between what was right and what was easy, you chose what was right. If that doesn't qualify you, then nothing qualifies anyone." Mia got home to find Bea making coffee. Her roommate had the day off from the hospital and was studying for an exam. "So, how was the mysterious meeting?" Mia told her, watching Bea's eyes grow progressively wider. "That's awesome! You're going to take it, right?" Mia sat at the table, accepting the mug of coffee Bea offered her. "I want to. But I'm scared. What if I can't change anything? What if the other locations have managers just as bad as Edward? Then you fire them too." Bea shrugged as if it were obvious. "Mia, you literally brought down a corrupt system because you refused to lie. You think a few jerk managers are going to scare you now?" Mia laughed, surprised by the sound. It was the first genuine laugh in weeks. She spent the weekend reading and rereading the contract. Paul had reviewed every clause, ensuring everything was fair. The salary was 3 times what she made as a server. It had benefits, health insurance, a meal plan. And most importantly, it had real autonomy to make changes. On Monday, Mia returned to Robert Miller's office. He greeted her with the same kind smile. "Have you made your decision?" "I have." Mia took a deep breath. "I accept, but on one condition." Robert raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "I want to be able to rehire the Bella Vita employees who were let go when it closed. The good people who were also victims of Edward. They deserve a second chance in a fair work environment." Robert smiled broadly. "That was already part of my plan. Done." They shook hands. In that handshake, Mia felt the weight of the responsibility she was taking on. But she also felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. She felt respected. The news that Bella Vita would reopen under new management spread quickly among the former employees. Mia spent the following weeks in intensive training. Robert introduced her to every department, explained the company structure, shared his vision. But the real test would come when she returned to the restaurant where it all began. On the morning of her first official day back at Bella Vita, Mia wore a new suit she had bought with part of her signing bonus. It wasn't extravagant, but it was professional and made her feel confident. When she arrived, she found the staff gathered in the main dining room. Julia was there, her eyes shining with pride. Rick was there too, arms crossed, but with a half smile on his face. Carla. Other familiar faces. And some new ones, recent hires made by Robert personally. Mia stepped onto the small stage where musicians sometimes performed and looked out at everyone. "I know some of you are happy about the changes, and I know others are resentful. You think I caused unnecessary trouble." She paused, meeting each person's eyes. "I'm not going to promise that everything will be perfect from now on. There will be hard days. There will be mistakes. But what I can promise is this. Here, honesty will be valued. Honest mistakes will be corrected with patience. But lies, unethical shortcuts, and disrespect toward employees or customers will be intolerable." There was a silence. Then Julia started to clap. Rick joined in. Soon the entire staff was applauding, some with tears in their eyes. After the meeting, Julia pulled her into a tight hug. "I was so scared. For you, Mia. And now look at you, you're the boss." Mia laughed. "Supervisor, not boss. And only because Robert is crazy enough to believe in me." "He's not crazy. He's smart." Julia stepped back, holding her friend's shoulders. "You saved this place, Mia. You saved all of us." The first few months were intense. Mia implemented new quality protocols. She created anonymous channels for employees to report problems. She instituted weekly meetings where the entire team could give feedback. She trained servers on how to handle complaints with honesty, not with rehearsed excuses. And most importantly, she was present, not locked in an office but on the restaurant floor, observing, helping, listening. The return of customers was gradual but steady. The reviews improved. The online ratings changed from complaints about quality to praise for the authentic service. Robert showed Mia the financial numbers. For the first time in years, customer satisfaction was rising along with profits. But not everything was easy. There was resistance. One of the older chefs, used to the old ways, tried to keep taking shortcuts. Mia confronted him, offered training. When he refused and was caught a third time reusing questionable ingredients, she fired him. It was her first time firing someone. She cried in the bathroom afterward, but she knew it had been the right decision. Edward, meanwhile, had vanished from the restaurant scene. There were rumors he was trying to start a business in another city, but his reputation preceded him. The threatening texts had stopped after he was served with notice of the criminal charges. A year and 3 months after her fateful firing, Robert called Mia for a special meeting. She entered his office with a pang of nervousness. "Mia, sit down." Robert pointed to the chair across from his desk. "How is that expansion project you suggested going?" "Well, the ethics training has been implemented in all 5 locations. The employee turnover rate is down 42%. Customer complaints have decreased, and online ratings are up an average of 1.5 stars across all platforms." Robert nodded, satisfied. "I've seen the numbers. Impressive." He leaned back in his chair. "Mia, you've transformed not just one location, but the culture of the entire group in just over a year. You've done what expensive consultants couldn't do in years. I had help. The team bought into the idea, and you gave me your full support." "True, but it was your vision, your leadership." Robert opened a drawer and pulled out a new folder. "Which is why I'm here. We've decided to open a 6th location, in Soho. It's going to be our most ambitious operation yet. Bigger, more sophisticated. And I want you to be the general manager." Mia felt the air leave her lungs. "General manager?" "With full autonomy. You choose the team, define the processes, implement the culture from the ground up. Salary commensurate with the responsibility, of course." Robert pushed the folder toward her. "Think it over. But this time, don't take so long to decide. I want to open in 3 months." Mia left the office with the folder under her arm, her mind buzzing. General manager. Her, who a year ago was unemployed and desperate, now had the chance to lead an entire operation from scratch. Her phone rang. "Connie." "Hey, Mom." "Honey, are you coming for dinner tonight? I made your favorite lasagna." Mia smiled. "Not only am I coming, but I have some news." "Good or bad?" "Depends on how you feel about a huge, terrifying challenge that's also incredible." "Then I want to hear it in person. 7 o'clock? I'll be there." Mia took the subway to Queens, watching the city pass by the window. A year ago, this same trip was made with the weight of defeat on her shoulders. Today, it was made with the weight of opportunity. Connie opened the door before Mia even knocked. Come in, the food's hot." The house was small but cozy, filled with the memories of a life lived with dignity, despite the hardships. Framed photos, well-tended plants, the smell of home cooking. They sat at the table and Mia told her about the proposal. Connie listened in silence, eating slowly, her eyes shining with pride. "My daughter is going to be the manager of a fancy restaurant in Soho." She shook her head, amazed. "Who would have thought?" "I'm terrified, Mom." "Good." Connie took her hand across the table. "Fear is a sign that you understand the responsibility. If you weren't scared, I'd be worried. But Mia, look at everything you've already done. You faced down a corrupt system. You lost everything and rebuilt. You completely turned the tables. This is small potatoes compared to that." Mia laughed. "Only you would call managing an entire restaurant small potatoes. You know what I mean." Her mother squeezed her hand. "And you know what's most important? You're not doing this just for money or status. You're doing it because you believe you can do things differently. Do them right. And that, honey, that's what makes you special." That night, lying in the single bedroom where she grew up, Mia made her decision. She would accept. Not because she wasn't afraid, but because fear no longer paralyzed her. The next 3 months were the most intense of Mia's life. She was involved in every decision. About the new Bella Vita Soho, the choice of location, the interior design, the creation of the menu, but most importantly, the selection of the staff. Robert had given her a blank check, and she used it. She made a point of personally interviewing every candidate, from server to chef. She wasn't just looking for technical skill, she was looking for people with the same belief she had, that good work and ethics were not mutually exclusive. Julia was one of the first to accept. "I'll go wherever you go, Mia, you know that." Rick came too, promoted to executive. "Chef, this is a chance to do it right from the beginning. No shortcuts, no pressure to compromise quality." Mia built a diverse team. Young people hungry for opportunity, experienced professionals tired of toxic environments, people who shared the vision that a restaurant could be both profitable and ethical. 2 weeks before the opening, during a full dress rehearsal with the entire team, Mia had a moment of panic. She was in the kitchen, watching the controlled chaos of prep, when it all felt like too much. Too many people depending on her, too much money invested, too many expectations. She stepped out into the back alley, taking deep breaths, trying to control her anxiety. "First panic attack?" Robert's voice startled her. He was leaning against the wall, smoking a cigarette. "Terrible habit, I know. I only smoke when I'm stressed." Mia quickly wiped away her tears. "Sorry, I just... Don't apologize. This is terrifying." Robert stubbed out the cigarette. "You know when I had my first panic attack. At the grand opening of the first Bella Vita. I threw up in the bathroom 15 minutes before we opened the doors." "Really? Really?" "I'd invested everything I had. Borrowed. From family. If it failed, I was bankrupt." He smiled. "But it didn't fail, and you know why? Because I had prepared well. I had a good team. I was sure of what I was doing, just like you are now." "And what if I let everyone down?" "Then you get back up and try again, just like you did that night a year ago." Robert put a hand on her shoulder. "Mia, you are the most qualified person for this, not because you know everything, but because you know what matters. And you know how to lead by example." Mia went back inside feeling more centered. Yes, it was scary. But she had faced scary things before. The grand opening of Bella Vita Soho was set for a Friday night. Mia arrived at 4 p.m. when the sun was still lighting up the dining room through the large windows. The restaurant was beautiful, elegant without being ostentatious, welcoming without losing its sophistication. The team was nervous, but excited. Mia gathered everyone before opening. "You're ready," she said, looking at each face. "There will be mistakes. It's impossible for there not to be. But we fix mistakes. What we don't fix is dishonesty, disrespect, shortcuts that compromise quality. Focus on the basics. Good food, genuine service, honesty. The rest will follow." Julia started a round of applause. The team dispersed to their stations. At 7 p.m. the doors opened. The first customer was an elegant woman who looked around with approval. Mia greeted her personally. "Good evening. Welcome to Bella Vita." The night was a whirlwind. The restaurant filled up quickly. Mia circulated among the tables, attentive to everything. She watched Rick command the kitchen with precision. She saw Julia manage the dining room with confidence. She saw the new employees rise to every challenge. There were problems, of course. A dish came out wrong, a table waited longer than it should have, but every problem was handled with honesty and speed. No customer left dissatisfied. Around 10 p.m., Mia noticed a familiar face. Paul Harrison was walking in with his wife, a beautiful woman with graying hair. The lawyer saw her and waved, smiling. Mia went to their table. "Mr. Harrison, what a wonderful surprise. I wouldn't miss the opening." He stood and hugged her. "Mia, this is my wife, Fernanda. Fernanda, this is the Mia I've told you so much about." "It's a pleasure to finally meet you," Fernanda smiled warmly. "Paul never stops talking about you." "I usually exaggerate," Paul admitted, "but in your case, I think I might even understate it." He looked around. "The place is beautiful, packed, a success. It's still too early to call it a success, Mia said, but she was smiling. Success isn't just about numbers, Mia. It's about doing what's right and seeing it work out. Paul squeezed her shoulder. And you're proving that's possible. At midnight, after the last customer had left and the team had finished cleaning, Mia gathered everyone again. They were exhausted but radiant. You were all incredible, every single one of you. Mia felt emotion tighten her throat. This was just the first night. There will be harder nights. But if we keep doing it like this, with honesty and dedication, there's no way we can fail. The team applauded. Julia shouted, "To the boss!" and everyone repeated it. Mia left the restaurant at 2 a.m. The neighborhood was quiet, the streets lit by lampposts. She stopped on the sidewalk, looking at the illuminated facade of Bella Vita Soho, the elegant name in gold letters. A year and a half ago, she was being thrown out of a similar place, humiliated and threatened. Tonight, she was leaving her own restaurant after a successful grand opening. Her phone buzzed. A text from Connie. "How did it go, honey?" Mia typed her reply, smiling. "Perfect, Mom. It was perfect." In the months that followed, Bella Vita Soho established itself as a success. The reviews were enthusiastic. The reservations were always full. More importantly to Mia, the team was happy. The turnover rate was almost zero. People wanted to work there. Robert visited regularly, always impressed. "You've created something special here, Mia. It's not just a restaurant, it's an example." Mia implemented initiatives that became a model for the other locations. Weekly feedback meetings, bonuses based on team performance, not individual, an anonymous channel for complaints, continuous training, celebrating honest mistakes as learning opportunities. She also didn't forget where she came from. Once a month, Mia gave talks at culinary schools and hospitality programs, speaking about work ethics, about the importance of doing the right thing even when it's costly. One afternoon, she was in her office when the receptionist called. "Mia, there's a man here who wants to speak with you, says it's personal." She went downstairs and found at the entrance a thin, aged figure it took her a few seconds to recognize. Edward. He looked different. His hair, once always slicked back, was disheveled and grey. The expensive suit had been replaced by simple clothes, but it was his eyes that had changed the most. Where there was once arrogance and cruelty, now there was only weariness. "Mia," he said, his voice hoarse. "I know I have no right to be here, but I needed to—" "Let's go outside," Mia cut him off, not wanting this conversation in the dining room. They stepped out onto the sidewalk. Edward looked at the ground, his hands in his pockets. "I wanted to apologize for what I did to you, for the threats, for everything." Mia crossed her arms, studying him. "What do you want from me, Edward?" "Nothing." He looked up and she saw he was sincere. "I don't want anything. I just wanted you to know that I get it. It took me a while, but I get it. You were right. I was wrong. And I paid for it." She said nothing, waiting. "I can't work in the industry anymore. My reputation—" Edward shook his head. "I'm working as a delivery driver now. It's honest. Doesn't pay well, but it's honest. And you know the strange thing? I sleep better now." Mia felt something akin to compassion. Not full forgiveness, but compassion. "Edward, I'm not going to pretend I've forgotten what you did. The threats, the humiliation, the way you treated people. But I'm also not going to carry anger over it. You're facing your consequences. And if you've really changed, then all of this served some purpose." He nodded, his eyes welling up. "Thank you for hearing me out." He turned to leave, but then stopped. "Mia, for what it's worth, you deserve all of this." He gestured toward the restaurant. "And so much more." She watched him walk away down the sidewalk, a small, stooped figure, so different from the tyrant he had once been. 6 months after her encounter with Edward, Mia was standing before a packed auditorium of culinary students at the Culinary Institute of America. It was her 5th lecture of the semester, and she still got nervous before each one. Robert was sitting in the front row next to the dean. He had insisted on coming with her, saying he wanted to see his star shine. Mia began her speech the way she always did, by telling her story, unfiltered. The waitress who served reheated food, knowing it was wrong. The pressure from Edward. The choice she made on that fateful night. The fall. And the rebuilding. When she got to the part about the confrontation in the restaurant, the silence in the auditorium was absolute. 200 pairs of eyes were fixed on her. "I know what you're thinking," Mia said, pacing the stage, "that I got lucky, that the owner of the restaurant happened to be there, that everything magically worked out. But that's not quite how it happened." She paused. "I lost everything first. I was jobless for weeks, scared, being threatened. I didn't know things were going to get better. I just knew I couldn't live with myself anymore if I kept lying." A hand went up in the audience. A young woman in her 20s. "But what if the owner hadn't been there? What if you had just ended up unemployed and nothing more?" Mia nodded. "Excellent question, and the honest answer is, I don't know, maybe I'd still be looking for a job today. Maybe I would have had to move back in with my mum. But you know what I know for sure? That I would have kept my dignity, that I could look myself in the mirror, and that eventually some other place that valued honesty would have hired me." She took a deep breath. "Look, I'm not going to lie and say that doing the right thing always rewards you immediately. Sometimes you pay a high price, but in the long run, integrity is the only solid foundation on which to build a career. Because a reputation takes years to build and seconds to destroy. And once you compromise your values, it gets easier and easier to compromise them again." After the lecture, students surrounded her with questions. Mia answered each one patiently, remembering when she herself was young and full of doubts about the future. Robert waited until everyone had left before approaching. "You're becoming a great public speaker. I get nervous every time." "Good. It means you care." He put a hand on her shoulder. "Mia, I need to talk to you about something important. Can we grab a coffee?" They went to a nearby coffee shop. Robert ordered a double espresso, Mia a cappuccino. When they sat down, he got straight to the point. "I'm thinking of retiring. Not completely, but stepping back from the day-to-day management of the group." Mia felt her heart sink. "Are you selling the company?" "No. I'll stay on as the majority partner. I just won't be involved in the daily decisions anymore." Robert stirred his coffee. "I want to spend more time with my family. Travel, maybe write a book." He looked at her. "And I want you to take over as director of operations for the entire group." Mia almost dropped her cup. "What? You've turned the Soho location into our most profitable and best-reputed restaurant. You've implemented changes that have benefited the entire group. Turnover is down, customer satisfaction is up, even costs have improved because we're not constantly replacing staff." Robert leaned in. "You're the obvious choice. But I have less than 2 years of management experience. And I had 0 when I opened my first restaurant," he smiled. "Mia, technical experience can be acquired. Vision and character cannot. You have both. And more importantly, the staff respects you. Not out of fear, but because you lead by example." Mia was silent, processing. Director of operations meant responsibility for 6 locations, over 300 employees, millions in revenue. "I need to think about it." "Of course." Robert finished his coffee. "But don't take too long. I want to make the transition before the end of the year." That night, Mia invited Connie and Bea to dinner at her apartment. She had moved into a bigger place 6 months ago, with 2 bedrooms and a small balcony. Nothing extravagant, but it was hers. As they set the table, together Mia told them about the proposal. Bea almost dropped a plate in excitement. "Mia, that's incredible! You're not even going to think twice, are you?" Mia looked at her mother, who was quiet. "Mom? What do you think?" Connie pulled out a chair and sat down, gesturing for the 2 of them to do the same. "Honey, when you were 8 years old, you came home from school crying because a boy had stolen a classmate's lunch. Do you remember that?" Mia shook her head. "I asked you what you did, and you know what you said? That you gave the girl half of your lunch, even though you knew you'd be hungry." Connie took her daughter's hand. "You've always been like that. You've always cared about doing the right thing, even when it cost you something. And that's why I know you'll make the right decision now, too." "What is the right decision?" the one that lets you sleep peacefully at night. Her mother squeezed her hand. If you accept, accept, because you believe you can make a difference for those 300 people. If you refuse, refuse because you're not ready. But don't let fear decide for you. Mia spent the weekend thinking. She visited every Bella Vita location, observing the operations, talking to managers and employees. She saw the impact the changes she had proposed were having. She saw happier teams, more satisfied customers, healthier environments. On Monday, she walked into Robert's office with her answer. I accept, but with conditions. Robert smiled. Always with conditions. Go on. First, full autonomy to hire and fire. If I find another Edward in any location, I want to be able to remove him immediately. Second, a budget to create a leadership development program. I want to promote from within whenever possible. Third, total transparency. I want access to all the numbers, all the reports, no secrets. Robert extended his hand. Deal. The transition took 3 months. Robert introduced Mia to investors, suppliers, partners. He taught her the financial aspects she hadn't yet mastered. He shared lessons from decades of experience. But the day Mia dreaded most was her official introduction to all the employees of the group. Over 300 people gathered in an event hall they had rented for the occasion. She walked onto the stage, her hands sweating. Robert made the introduction. It is with great pride that I announce Mia Miller as our new Director of Operations. Some of you already know her. Others will get to know her soon. But you should all know that she represents the values I want for this company: excellence, integrity, and respect. Mia took the microphone. She looked out at the sea of faces, some familiar, many not. She saw Julia in the front, giving her a double thumbs up. She saw Rick nodding. She saw employees she had never met, looking on with curiosity and some skepticism. Hi, I'm Mia, and less than 2 years ago I was a server at one of our locations. That got their attention. Murmurs rippled through the audience. I know some of you are thinking, how is someone with so little management experience going to lead the entire operation? And that's a fair question. Mia walked across the stage. The answer is, I'm not going to lead alone. I'm going to lead with you. Because you are the ones on the front lines every day. You know what works and what doesn't, and I am going to listen. She paused. But I'm also going to demand, I will demand honesty, I will demand respect from the top down and the bottom up. I will demand that we treat our customers with dignity and our colleagues with empathy. And in return, I will ensure that every one of you is valued. That mistakes are learning opportunities, not punishments. That your voices are heard. The silence was now total. Mia could see she had the full attention of the room. I'm not going to promise perfection. I will make mistakes. You will make mistakes. But if we continue to be guided by honesty and respect, we can't go too far wrong. And if anyone, at any level from manager to dishwasher, sees something that is wrong and needs to report it, my door is always open. Always. When she stepped off the stage 15 minutes later, she received a standing ovation. Not from everyone, she noted. Some still looked skeptical, but most were willing to give her a chance. The next 6 months were the most challenging of Mia's professional life. She uncovered problems at 2 locations, with managers who were repeating the old patterns. She had to make difficult dismissals. She faced resistance from long-time employees accustomed to the old ways, but she also saw victories. The Brooklyn location, which had been on the verge of closing, turned around completely after she installed a new manager, promoted from server, who implemented the same practices as the Soho restaurant. Employee satisfaction, measured in quarterly surveys, rose consistently. And the financial numbers, surprisingly, they improved. Less turnover meant lower training costs. Happy employees provided better service. Satisfied customers returned and recommended the restaurants. 18 months after taking over as Director of Operations, Mia was at an awards ceremony for the restaurant industry. Bella Vita had been nominated in 3 categories: Best Service, Best Employee Development, Program, and Company of the Year. Robert was there, proud as a father. Connie was there too, wearing a new dress Mia had bought for the occasion. Paul Harrison and his wife, Julia, Rick, B. the whole family Mia had built over those turbulent years. When they announced the winner for Company of the Year and said Bella Vita, Mia went up to the stage in a state of shock. She accepted the trophy with trembling hands. "This award isn't mine," she said into the microphone. "It belongs to every server, every cook, every manager who chooses to do the right thing every day, who treats colleagues and customers with respect, who believes that profit and ethics are not enemies." She looked out at the audience, finding her mother's eyes. "And it belongs to my mum, who taught me that dignity is non-negotiable, even when it's costly." The party went on late. Mia danced with Robert, with Paul, with Rick. She laughed with Julia about the old days. She hugged Connie for long minutes. When she finally got home at 3 a.m., exhausted but radiant, Mia sat on her balcony with a cup of tea. She looked out at the illuminated city below. She thought about everything that had happened since that fateful night 2 years ago. The choice to tell the truth had been costly at first, but it had opened doors she never imagined possible. Not just professional doors, but personal ones. She had become someone she respected, someone she trusted. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Mia, it's Carla from the kitchen. Remember me? Hope you don't mind I got your number. I just wanted to say thank you. I got a job at another restaurant and applied everything I learned from you. My boss noticed and promoted me to sous chef. None of this would have happened if you hadn't had the courage that day. Thanks for showing us there's a different way." Mia wiped away the tears streaming down her face. She replied quickly, "Carla, I'm so proud. Congratulations. And remember, you always had the talent. I just helped you see it." She saved the message, added it to a collection of similar ones she had received over the months. From former employees who had found better opportunities, from grateful customers, from young people who had heard her lectures and decided to make different choices. In the end, Mia realized it wasn't about her. It never had been. It was about creating a ripple effect, showing that one person, one choice, could change not just their own life, but touch so many others. She finished her tea, turned off the lights and went to bed. Tomorrow would be another day full of challenges, difficult decisions, problems to solve. But she would face it all with the same certainty that had guided her from the beginning. The certainty that honesty, even when it's costly, is always worth it in the end. End of story. If Mia's journey touched your heart, know that we have many more inspiring stories waiting for you. Every narrative we share carries a powerful message about courage, integrity, and the strength to do the right thing, even when the world pressures you to give up. Mia taught us that the truth can be expensive in the moment, but a lie charges interest forever. That dignity is non-negotiable, that an ordinary person can create extraordinary change when they refuse to be complicit in what's wrong. If you believe like Mia that it's worth fighting for what's right, hit that like button on this video. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that celebrate courage, honesty, and the transformative power of a single right choice. And in the comments, let us know, have you ever had to make a difficult choice between what was right and what was convenient? What was that experience like? Remember, every view, every like, every comment helps us continue to bring you stories that inspire and transform. Together, we can spread the message that integrity isn't weakness, it's strength. Until the next story, and never forget, honesty is the only solid foundation on which to build a life worth living.